Our gospel this week is taken from the 24th chapter of St. Luke, and it's one of the most beautiful and powerful and touching stories of the New Testament. We see two disciples of Jesus, Cleopas and his companion, who on the night of Easter are walking away from Jerusalem. Their steps are heavy, they're sad, and they're disillusioned. Interestingly, their destination is Emmaus, a few hours' walk from Jerusalem. Emmaus was a Roman spa. So Emmaus is a place of pleasure. It's a place where we go when we're sad, when we want to forget. They're walking westwardly, which means they have their backs to Jerusalem, the place of the rising sun. And symbolically, Jerusalem is the temple, the dwelling place of God. It's the community, it's the church. Every time we leave our community, every time we leave the community of the church, we are in danger. How you walk in the gospel and the direction of your walking is very important. In the Gospel of Luke, the whole momentum of the whole gospel is towards Jerusalem, towards the sacrifice, towards the place of the resurrection. And they're walking away from there. They're walking away sad, dejected, disillusioned, and even angry. So if we're walking the wrong way, we will not recognize Jesus. Luke is a very skilled writer, and his gospel is beautifully crafted. And this story today, Luke chapter 24, verse 13 to 35, is also very beautifully put together. It's what we call chiastic in structure, which means the first part of the story mirrors the second part, and there's a central theme to the story. At the beginning of this passage, we see the two disciples are walking away from Jerusalem, walking slowly. At the end of the passage, we see they run back to Jerusalem in haste. Secondly, we see at the beginning of the passage they're conversing with each other, with fear, sharing their opinions. At the end of the passage, we see they run to Jerusalem to share the good news of the resurrection with others. Then at the beginning of the passage, Jesus draws near to them and walks with them. At the end of the passage, he disappears. At the beginning, we see they cannot recognize Jesus, and eventually their eyes are opened. Initially, their dialogue is heavy and sad. Eventually, there is an explosion of joy as they recognize Jesus. What is Luke trying to show us here? We have in this passage the structure of the Mass. You have the introduction to the Mass, the liturgy of the Word, the liturgy of the Eucharist, and the sending off in mission. As they are walking, Jesus joins them and walks with them and listens to them without judging. The proximity and the intimacy of our God as he walks every day with us. A friend of mine right now is walking away from the church. He's angry. The scandals that have happened in church have hurt him deeply. But I do feel that it's not the time to reason with him. It's a time to walk with him, to listen. And one day, we will reason again. As they walk, they open up and give Jesus their version of the story. You could say the journalistic version, which is information but not transformation. And they give him all the facts and details of the passion and resurrection of Jesus, but they don't get it, so to speak. How do we get something like a joke? If you tell a joke to 3 or 4 people, 2 laugh, the other 2 don't get it. They haven't connected all the dots. They hear the same story, but they just don't get it. One time I remember during a youth retreat, I told a joke, and a day later, one of the teenage girls started to laugh out loud during a meal. She just got the joke that was told the day before. It took her a day, but she got it. Then Jesus begins to speak, to try and help them to understand the big picture, to join the dots together. How does he do it? He begins to open up the scriptures to them, to describe the Old Testament, the patterns of the Old Testament that were leading to his death and his resurrection. A wonderful Bible lesson. I would love to have been there to hear this incredible Bible lesson given by Jesus. Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer and so enter into his glory? Jesus helps them through the Word of God to understand that the path of the cross is the only way through this broken world and the only path to glory. For me, there's a key line coming up here in the story. As they approach a village, it's evening. Jesus makes as if to leave and to move ahead of them. But they beg him to stay. They say, "Stay with us." There's an expression that we say in Ireland, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And we see in this part of the story where Jesus brings them to a place where they begin to thirst. They begin to hunger. Their hearts are on fire, as the text says. They begin to yearn. And without this yearning, we cannot know God fully, and we cannot find full happiness. Now their hearts are yearning. They're ready for the Eucharist. We cannot approach the Eucharist without having a heart that's burning and hungry and yearning for God. Jesus takes the bread, he blesses it, he breaks it, and he gives it to them. At that moment, their eyes are opened and they recognize him, but he disappears from their sight. From then on, Jesus is in our midst. He's present in the Eucharist. And through the Eucharist, we get the big picture. We get the true meaning of our lives. All of a sudden, these 2 disciples have found meaning and direction and incentive in their lives, and they rush off to Jerusalem. This is the last section of the story. And at the end of the Mass, the priest says, "Ita missa est" in Latin, which means much more than the Mass is ended. See you later. It means, this is your mission. Go. We're sending you off. What you have just experienced, go tell the world. It's the middle of the night. It's a dangerous time to travel on the roads, but they don't care. They rush off to Jerusalem. The heavy steps at the beginning of the story have been transformed into fast and light and hasteful feet as they rush off to spread the good news of the resurrection.